só chegar a esta casa.
Welcome back to 4pixels. Right now, Kanetsu will not be joining us because she had to take on some extended shifts this weekend, which means she has only gotten about 4 hours of sleep these past 2 days. So, yeah, she's getting some much needed and deserved rest. But Moon will be joining us, so I don't have to balance God knows how many voices on my own. And she's getting to her computer right now. While we wait for her, just the usual plugging of this is for Extra Life. We are at 255 of our $300 goal. Anything that you can give, or if you could advertise, that'll help us. All goes to the Children's Hospital in Dayton, Ohio.
I am here.
There she be.
Hi.
Hello, Moon. How are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Okie doke. You got visual?
Yep.
Alrighty, then let's get in. Any character in particular you'd like to voice?
Oh shoot. Did I not catch back up, or did I? I don't think I caught back up with last week.
Oh,
Maybe I did.
What do you last remember?
That's a good question, Coco. I just remember being in agony because this game is evil.
Did you hear any of Morgana's story?
No.
No? Okay. Well, Morgana started telling her story. To give a very, very quick synopsis, it kind of started a bit like the story we learned about the witch during the fourth door, except it was a little flipped. Instead of thinking that Morgana was cursed, people actually thought she was the daughter of God, since the village had been having a terrible drought for a really, really long time. And her mother, who was pregnant with her, started going on saying, oh, that she had the child of God in her because she was pregnant and hadn't lain with any man. And then when Morgana was born, they got it started raining and it saved them all from the drought. And so because her mother was always going on and on and on about this, Morgana believed her mom. She thought she was the daughter of God and that she was put on earth to help people. And when she was about, I think, 5 or 6 years old, a man, accused her of being the daughter of a charlatan. And so in order to prove, that she was blessed and had holy powers, she went to an old woman who was ailing and gave her some of her blood to drink. And
yep. What?
And due to, I would assume, the placebo effect, the woman got better. And so, that served to people as proof. And from then on, whenever she wanted to bless people or help them, she would give them her blood, to the point that her arms got completely scarred. Word got out. People started coming from all over different villages and different cities to see her. Her mother eventually started to complain that since they were doing this all for free, that, that was a terrible thing. They could be so well off if she would charge just even a little bit of money for all the help that she gave, which upset Morgana because they weren't supposed to be interested in material wealth or receiving any gain, which caused the mother to sell her off to a lord.
Oh, boy.
Yep, and then the Lord started using her as sort of a centerpiece for these lavish and hedonistic banquets that he would hold, in which he would constantly cut her up and serve her blood to all his guests. Yeah. Yep.
Oh my god.
And remember, she was 6 years old when this was happening, around that age.
Oh no.
And it kept going on for a long time to a point in which she could barely even maintain consciousness anymore. And the memory she had was that one of the guests saw her face, and for some reason, because her face had at that point become super messed up, I'm going to guess, because
They
she mentioned that
they
he never
just
cut her
probably
face, so I'm gonna guess she must have gotten some sort of infection or something, some disease
Mhm.
from all of that. So that freaked one of the guests out, and the Lord was going to go and kill her, saying that she was a witch and a saint's disguising herself as a saint. But at that time, there was an uprising among his other slaves and servants, and a boy managed to get Morgana and pull her away, and he took her over to hide in a brothel. And of course, Morgana was freaking out all about this, sure that they would force her to, start selling herself. But they never
Mhm.
did, and for a couple years they raised her there, and she actually started to change her mind about them and started to feel, okay, maybe I'm not child of God, but I can still do miracles. But then the brothel was attacked by bandits when she was 12 years old, and once again, she was captured as a slave and was going to be sold off. But one of the slaves there managed to sort of get free and kill all their captors. But then he went on and killed almost all the other slaves too, except for Morgana. And
Sounds kind of familiar.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Yukimasa, since she also describes like him as being very foreign looking.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised she didn't use the keyword beast.
She did actually.
Oh.
Now that I remember, I
Oh
think she
boy.
did. And because of that, it also makes me think that maybe like the boy that had rescued her and took her to the brothel might be Mel, but
That's what I was like, kind of maybe thinking there was going to be like a reference to, but since you didn't make much more reference to the kid, I was just like, okay, well maybe he's just a random. Maybe Mel was the reincarnation of the Lord of the Household.
yeah, maybe. I mean, because it's very difficult for me when it comes to the kid. He did come up like he was always a visiting her in the brothel, and he was kind of like he wasn't like partaking or anything like that, but I guess he was maybe a helper around the brothel or something.
Mm,
But yeah, she talked about how she grew close to him, and
like,
it wasn't like romantic. I don't think it was insinuating, maybe a little bit, but the only other thing that she eventually said about him afterwards was that she has no idea what happened to him. He was probably killed during the attack, and all the other women were probably sold.
see, like with the Yukimasa part, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. He caused her to suffer because he then just fucking killed everybody that was around them also, in addition to the people
Mhm.
who
Mhm.
had kidnapped them. But like with Mel possibly being that boy, it's like, well, why would that be Mel if she has no idea what happened to him? And like, what would him taking her to the brothel, which did not end up using her, like, why would that have given her the venomous rage that she had toward Mel and his sister,
Mhm.
like in the end there? Like, I would think that Mel's the Lord, and that's why like he's kind of also the first pass, but then there's people
Hakopo
between
could
him and
also be
Yuki.
the Lord. We haven't, yeah,
Ooh.
we haven't seen anything of him yet. Like she told the first part in like one segment, and the part with being the brothel being attacked, and maybe Yuki Moss in the second. So I'm sure we're gonna get a third that maybe has him. But if I if
Mm-hmm.
if the Lord isn't involved somehow, that's very confusing. Like if he
Mm-hmm.
isn't, because so far he's been the one to hurt her the most,
Yeah,
along with her
that's
mother, I would say.
yeah, but I can't pick out anyone. Oh well, I guess it could be Mel's sister that she shoved in
Hmm.
that body. Ugh.
Or or Pauline maybe, but Pauline
Yeah,
was, yeah, I don't
she
know.
was kind of spiteful, wasn't she? Like,
Not
if I
really.
remember. Wait, who am I thinking of as spiteful then?
Maria
Hmm.
probably.
Yeah, I was thinking of that person because it's like, Yukimasa fits the bill of that other person.
Hmm.
Like, if anybody was going to be her mom, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and get started. So, Michelle or
Uh,
Morgana, who would you prefer?
ooh. I guess I'll do Morgana since you were doing Michelle the one time.
Okay. Wrapped in absolute darkness. Warm blood spills onto my cheeks, my hair, my skin. Chunks of human flesh rain down on me.
Ugh.
Make it stop! Pitter patter, pitter patter. There's no end to the deluge. The smell of death fills the air. Is this the right save? Yeah, it is. I'm struck with a wave of nausea so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. When my mouth opens to vomit, blood pours into it. Let go of me! Dead bodies grab at my ankles, dragging me down. To
Oof.
where? Hell, or to the mountain of corpses?
Now do you understand that there was a time, if but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions? But I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my Daughter of God shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death.
Maybe that's the reason why then. She resents
Yeah,
Mel for showing her happiness.
yeah. I mean, because both the kids, well, okay. Mel's sister was not so, but Mel was kind of a nice kid, so, you know, he was
A
pretty
little,
normal
a
as
little
far as boys
hypocritical.
go.
A little
Yeah, he's
hypocritical.
normal.
And
Yeah.
maybe a little
Mm,
spineless, maybe? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, fits the bill of a kid who was born a slave.
Yeah, like the thing is, I mean, not so much from what we've seen here, but more so, I don't know if you saw it, but when we were collecting the keys, did you see
Mm,
that bit? All
no, I
right,
don't think so.
all right, yeah, then that's a whole nother thing. But we did converse a little with Mel there, and but
Directly.
also at the same, yes, directly with him. But at the same time, we still need to remember he was a 17-year-old kid, and he might be stuck in that sort of mentality. That's usually a thing you see a lot in gothic novels, that when a person either dies, like Morgana did, experience fury and agony, that's sort of how their mental and emotional state remains, and they are
Mm,
unable to grow out of it. Because you would
mhm.
think after hundreds of years, like, I'm not saying that she would
But
get over it
you're
and
a
forgive it,
spirit.
but it's like,
Yeah.
don't you get tired?
Nope. You're just mad all the time and stuck. So you fester.
Exactly.
But so Mel is stuck. Even though he lived his life, he's kind of stuck, seemingly.
I think
Like, is that
so,
what?
because what happened at that age affected him greatly.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I mean that's plausible because I mean you don't necessarily have to grow up; you just get bigger.
Yep. Ugh. I can't say anything in response. I can't form words. I feel what she experienced, the massacre she witnessed, the limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age, it's enough to drive me mad. The fact that the fact that a 12-year-old girl had to experience something so unspeakable devastates me.
Tell me, my dear, do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? If you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and my despair with me. Won't you?
The witch's cackle echoes through the pile of dead bodies. There's not a speck of light, and hideous death lingers everywhere. Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down into a deep, dark ocean. An ocean of blood.
It's her trophy room.
She's very proud of it.
Yes, she did all the decorating herself. See all the nice strata and blood. Okay, so this is her then, right?
Yep.
Now, on with the story. I was at a complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city because I knew there was no one left who would take me in. There was only the Lord who had bowed me and drained me of my blood. So I wandered the roads, no destination in mind, and nothing to defend myself but the clothes on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance, I saw a lake. So driven by my thirst, I turned my unsteady feet toward the water, not caring that it took me off the main road. And it turned out that was the correct choice, because there was a small cottage beside the lake. Smoke rising from the chimney, telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked on the door. No one answered. The door wasn't locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open. And beyond it, I found an old woman sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch. By trade, that is. It appeared she had had a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried, powdered leaves and crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. The woman looked as though she was asleep. Presumably, she had passed away of old age, for there was no sign bandits had been rooting through the cottage, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over at the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. You think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and the owner of the cozy cottage was no longer of this world. It's free real estate. There was no reason I couldn't fill the home in her stead, was there? I deserved to have somewhere I felt comfortable after everything I'd been through, didn't I? And so I took up residence in the old witch's cottage and remained there until my 16th year. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had no trust for people. I don't blame you. I shut them out, building high walls around myself. After such a tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself, to keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travelers would, on occasion, pay the old witch's cottage a visit, seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack the door open, telling them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food, and never showing my face. One day, a young man showed up at the cottage.
My sister has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine.
He was very soft-spoken. There was a distinct kindness in his voice, which I thought unusual, curious.
Maybe this will be him.
What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expressions did he make as he spoke? To satisfy that curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the crack in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing flaxen hair. This is definitely him.
Yeah.
And upon seeing me, he didn't flinch back in disgust. He smiled. According to him, his younger sister had fallen gravely ill, and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. Medicines I gave him, too, had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. He wanted nothing more than to relieve even the slightest bit of his sister's suffering. And, moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to help. Wanted to do anything I could do to help. Blah, blah, blah. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would ask not only for medicine, but to go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me, despite my horrifying appearance.
It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time.
This sounds weirdly familiar.
You've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline?
He said with a smile, taking me by the hand. We spoke as we circled the lakeside. His voice was always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through a crack in the walls. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything. And whenever he did, he was at his brightest and most melancholy. The young man had been a member of a noble house, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden.
I'll take anything at this point to make her feel better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one.
That word, muttered beneath his breath, sparked my memory. I was a saint. My blood had healing properties. I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help, and who deserved it more than this kind-hearted young man's sister? So I decided to tell him what I really was. That my blood had miraculous powers, that it had saved people. That the moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end. That I had been known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything. And he believed it all. He led me to his house, where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. She was a sweet little girl with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. It was touching to see the two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them. And so I made a new cut on my arm, which had healed considerably thanks to the salve thanks to the slave and the women of the brothel. Sorry. And let the girl drink my blood. There's a thing called salve. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like, the old lady was a witch, so obviously there'd be salve in her cottage. Neither of them had any doubts about my sainthood. And because they believed, a miracle occurred. The flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like, for once, I had actually saved someone's life. The only issue was, she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed. I was deeply perplexed by this. A miracle had undoubtedly taken place, but it was only temporary. Now, though, I believe I can explain what happened. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her condition worsened, the young man came to request more, and never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered her my services. Over time, though, the hope in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on fewer walks, and he seemed hesitant to look me in the eye. I assume it was out of discomfort, out of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood. But I don't think his concerns were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean in our time. And not only was I giving mine away, I was having his sister imbibe it. It's pretty gross, not gonna lie. Looking at it that way, it would hardly be a surprise for him or anyone else to think that what I was doing was depraved. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening up. That was what I got for letting his kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place, but regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. Because why not? No one else. Just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me. I would continue offering her my blood. And I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. The young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had let into my walls. So, as usual, I took the man's request from behind the cottage door. But I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking.
Are you the witch with the miracle blood?
First, how did he know my blood had powers? Second, why had he called me a witch and not a saint? Third, why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage? That's terrifying. I told the man he had to leave. That I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said,
I am in need of your blood. Could you not spare a little?
So I guess this is where Yukimasa got the I'm gonna eat people thing. My blood was for the sick and needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. And I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, the fountain of blood. The man drenched in crimson, wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another rampage. But instead, he gave a simple,
As you say,
and went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief, which is when I realized tears were rolling down both my cheeks. Like an ordinary girl. 3 days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up at my cottage.
I'm sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over.
Those two sentences were like a light shining from above. I wanted to talk to him too. I wanted to take a walk around the lake and listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more.
Consider that a command. Aloy, a moment, please. When we spoke, Aaron didn't wish to dwell on the details of Ursa's death. Understandable, of course. But now that they've been left to my imagination, those details are all I can think about. You were there. Did she suffer?
Mm. Mm. Oh, the other thing for us people that is bad at aiming, there's this weapon called a rope caster that you can get at one point in the game. Not like right away, but it's still early in game. I think. I don't remember when exactly, but you can get a rope caster, and that allows you to tie down the machines, so you get a few shots at them.